In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this amazing environment in Blender. Before starting, please download the tree bark, rock, wood textures in 2K, or you can download in 4K also, then download this leaf transparent image. These links are provided in the description. I like to share something. In Gumroad you can buy my products. If you buy this chess product, you will get chess in wooden, plastic, and metal chess too, with chess timer. You can buy this product in CG Trader. I'm working as a freelancer for living. You can contact me in Fiverr. I will create 3D interior scene and model assets also. Now we can start modeling. Our focus will be on modeling a section of the wooden house initially. Begin by removing the lamp. Select the cube, go to edit mode, then press SZ0.2 on the numpad to scale it down. Press SY5 on the numpad. Expand the scale in the x-axis by pressing SX3 on the numpad. Add a loop cut by pressing the Ctrl and R key. Then bevel it, press Ctrl and B. Insert a loop cut here, then extrude this face by pressing E. In this view I am position the camera by using the Ctrl, Alt, and 0 on the numpad to switch to camera view. Once in view, press N to open the right side panel, then enable the camera to view. This will allow to move your camera the camera view. If the camera to view is not enabled, you won't be able to move within it. I am fine with this perspective. Press the Shift A, Mesh, Cube and bring it here, in edit mode. If you press S alone, the cube will scale in all dimensions. However, if you press S followed by Shift Z, the cube will only scale in the X and Y dimensions, keeping the Z dimension unchanged. To exit the camera view, press 0 on the numpad. Next, relocate the cube to this position and press 0 to return to the camera view. Adjust the size of the cube only in the Z-axis. While in edit mode, choose everything, then press Shift plus D to make a duplicate and position it here. Create another duplicate of it. Then press the RY90 to rotate it. Then bring it down. Then scale it little bit down. And scale it in X-axis. Duplicate this and bring to the bottom. Next, press S Shift X to scale it in the Y and Z dimensions only, not in the X dimension. Duplicate this again, move it upwards. Reduce the scale by pressing S and Shift X. Once again make a duplicate of it. Next, rotate it on the Y-axis and move it here. Then only decrease the size on the Z-axis. Now, duplicate it and move it along the X-axis. Next, hold down the Shift key and press R to replicate this action. If you continue to hold the Shift key and press R, the action will be repeated. To go the top view, press the number 7 on the numpad. In edit mode, make a duplicate of this and then move this here. Make another duplicate, rotate it, then press SY-1 to flip it, and then move it here. Then adjust this in camera view. Now go to modifiers. For wooden house add bevel modifier. Change the segments 4, and reduce the amount 0.015. Select this object, and select the wooden house, press Ctrl L, click Copy Modifiers. Now, let's proceed to the render view. Change the render engine to cycles. In World Properties, click the yellow dot, then choose the sky texture. By doing this, a sky will be added to our scene, and we have the option to modify these settings to create a morning, evening, or night time. Modify certain values to change the position of the sun. Sun elevation 11 degrees. The sun rotates to 145 degrees. The dust measurement is 4.946. And ultimately adjust the strength of 0.400. Now, we need to apply textures. Click and drag on the right side corner to create a new window. Next, switch to the shader editor and rename it to Wooden House. In the Edit Preferences, make sure to enable the Node Wrangler add-on. This will help us in adding mapping nodes and importing textures effectively. Select Principled BSDF, then press Ctrl-Shift-T. In the wood texture, choose the base color, displacement, normal, and roughness textures and bring them in. Now we have to UV unwrap. In edit mode, select everything and then press U, click Smart UV Project. In shader editor, reduce the displacement value 0.3, and change the scale value to 3. Next, type 90 in the Z rotation in order to rotate it. Select this object, click New, rename, Wood, then select the principled BSDF shader, and use the shortcut Ctrl-Shift-T. And add these 4 textures for the wood in the wood textures. Change displacement scale 0.200, and change the mapping scale value 1.500. In edit mode, select everything. Press U, then select the Smart UV Project option. Next, bring a cube, scale it big to this size. Then, delete this side. Hold down the Alt key while selecting this edge to select all 4 edges. Finally, move these edges back. In the absence of this cube, the sunlight will illuminate the entire wooden house. By incorporating this cube, we can obscure this section, resulting in a more realistic appearance. Now hide the camera. Next, choose every object and press M, click on New and give it the name Wooden House. You will notice that it has now become a part of a collection. Finally, make the camera visible again. Bring a plane and in edit mode scale it up by pressing S and then 100 on the numpad. Move the object along the X-axis as needed. Subdivide the object by right-clicking and selecting the Subdivide option. To quickly repeat the subdivision process, hold down Shift and press R. Keep repeating the subdivision process as much as needed, depending on your computer's capacity to handle it. Now, looking at the camera view, we can see that only this part of the plane is visible. Therefore, when in edit mode, switch to wireframe mode. After that, select all these faces, hold the Ctrl key and press the plus to expand the selection. Next, press Ctrl I to invert the selection and proceed to delete these selected faces. Select all the objects and move it here. Now we want a tree. In Edit Preference, enable the Sampling Tree Gen add-on. Press Shift-A, Curve, Sampling Tree Gen. We have a tree in the pop-up menu. When viewing the tree in wireframe mode, you will notice that it consists of a higher number of polygons. Now I don't want a high poly tree. To achieve this, lower the resolution values in this section. You will observe that the number of polygons is decreasing as you make these adjustments. Next, enable on the option for leaves to activate it. Switch the shape to rectangular, as we plan to use a transparent image that is in a rectangular shape. This is why we are changing it to rectangular. You have the option to adjust the number of leaves and also change their size to 0.50. Additionally, you may also modify it to 0.50. Start by entering the render view, then choose the leaves. Next, in the shader editor, click New, rename this shader as Leaves, select Principled BSDF and then press Ctrl+T. Next, click on Open in the Image Texture option. Afterwards, import the transparent image of leaves. Now, connect alpha of the image texture to the alpha of the principled BSDF. We have leaves. Click on the tree and then click on New. Change the name to Bark. Then choose the Select BSDF, and press Ctrl-Shift-T to apply bark textures. Use these 4 textures. The tree is currently in a curve. In order to connect the tree and the leaves, we must first convert the tree to a mesh. To do this, select the tree, right-click, and choose Convert to Mesh. Now that the tree has been converted to a mesh, we can proceed to join it with the leaves. Select both the tree and the leaves, then press Ctrl+J to join them. However, we encounter an issue with the bark texture. Go into Edit mode, selection of the tree. Next, press U and select Smart UV Project to fix the bark texture mapping. Adjust the scale value to 3 for the bark texture mapping. Now the tree should appear correctly textured. Rename the object to tree by pressing F2. Finally, move the tree to the desired location. We currently need rock. To accomplish this, go to Edit, Preferences, and enable Extra Objects add-on. Next, Press Shift A, Mesh, Rock Generator. You have the option to adjust the number of rocks generated and modify their size. Additionally, there are various rock types available for you to choose. I want just 3 rocks, in number of rocks put 3. After that, move the rock. In the shader editor, click on New and label it as Rock. Select the principled BSDF shader, then press Ctrl plus Shift plus T. Finally, add the 4 textures in the Rock Textures section. Click the material icon, then drag it to the rock to add this material. Repeat the same action for the other rock. It is evident that the texture of these rocks is not aligned correctly, so we need to apply UV unwrapping to them. Choose the rocks and enter Edit mode. Press U and choose Smart UV Project. Then bring this rock little bit up, because I want the pivot point in the bottom of these rocks. After selecting the rocks, press M and create a new collection, assigning the name, Rock. Move your rock side. We need grass now. I hope you have downloaded the grass blend file. Click on File, then select Append. Go to the Grass Medium folder. Choose the grass file. Within the Objects section, select all these and import them. These grasses has duplicated. Choose these grasses and delete them, then also select this small grass and delete it. Now delete 2 times each grasses, because it has 2 duplicated grasses. Likewise delete the all duplicated grasses. Then select these grass, make it a collection, rename it grass. Move its side here. We need a tree trunk now. Press Shift plus A, select Mesh, then Cylinder and change the number of vertices to 8. Rotate the cylinder. Scale it in Y-axis. Next, add 3 loop cuts. Then scale this vertex in Y-axis to bring it close. Go to the Edit Preferences and activate the Loop Tools add-on. Select these faces, insert them, again insert it, then right-click and select Loop Tools, click on Circle and decrease the size. Pressing 3 on the numpad will switch to side view. To extrude, hold Ctrl and right-click, it will extrude, then scale it and extrude it like this. After that, slightly insert this face, and extrude it inward. Select these 2 faces, insert it, and then press Ctrl E, followed by clicking on Bridge Edge Loops. After that, press F2 and rename it as the tree trunk. Go to the render view. Include a bark texture. It is noticeable that the texture is not correctly applied in this area. While in edit mode, select all elements and press U, then choose the Smart UV Project option. Afterwards, move it here. I prefer using a specific asset in Gscatter. Go to the Gscatter browser. I will choose this asset to work with. I use Blender 4.2, and as a Gscatter user, you may be familiar with the issues that can arise. Instead of clicking on Scatter Selected, click on Add to Scene. If you are unfamiliar with Gscatter, I have created a beginner-friendly video tutorial on using Gscatter. The video link is provided in the description, you can watch it. Unfortunately, Gscatter is not working in Blender 4.2. However, I have devised 2 potential solutions for this issue, and you can find the video link in the description. I will now demonstrate one of the possible methods for utilizing these assets. Choose the plant, then press the M to create a new collection, and name it as Plants. Now select Plane, press F2, rename it Landscape. In Shader Editor, click New, rename it Landscape. Then select Principled BSDF, press Ctrl-Shift-T. Then bring this foreground texture. Change the mapping scale value 18. Now all we need to do is utilize the geometry node to combine all of these objects on this plane. Choose the plane and go to the modifiers, bring Displace modifier. Next, click on New and then select this. This will direct you to the texture properties, where you should change the type to clouds and adjust the size value to 10. Return to the modifiers and modify the strength value to 1.200. Finally, press Ctrl 1 to add a subdivision modifier with a value of 1. Now let's change this into geometry nodes. Click on New, rename it as Rocks, press Shift and A, bring distribution of points, then place it here. Switch this to Poisson disk, and reduce the maximum density value. This will distribute points on all faces. Since we can't see our plane, let's bring join geometry. Now connect the group input to this join geometry so we can see the plane. Next, bring in an instance on points and place it here. Bring collection info nodes. Alternatively, simply click on the rock collection, drag it, and drop it as a shortcut. Enable these two options. Connect the collection info instance to the instance here. This will instantly place rocks on all the points. You can observe that our rocks have been placed. If the maximum density value is too high, PC will get slowed down, so I have reduced the value. Another thing to note is that 3 rocks are placed in the same area. If you enable pick instance, each rock will be placed randomly. I just want rocks up to this area only. Switch this to weight paint, and in the object data properties, you can see that there is no vertex group. By simply clicking, a vertex group will be added. Now double-click, rename this landscape, then connect the density factor to the group input. Next, click on this icon and then select landscape. By doing this, we can see that the rock is only in the red area. Simply click and drag it like this. Afterwards, I would like each rock to have a different scale and rotation. Bring random value node and connect it to the scale, with a maximum value of 1.200 and a minimum value 1.020. Then adjust the rotation by clicking and dragging. Bring random value. Next, reset the X and Y values to 0 by clicking and dragging. Adjust the minimum and maximum rotation values for random rotation. Connect the minimum density value to the geometry nodes. In the modifiers, change the density maximum value to 9.19. Similarly, link the maximum density value and seed as well. Change the maximum density value 0.020. Then change the seed value. Then connect this minimum and maximum to group input. Lastly, connect this collection to the group input. If you increase the density minimum value, it will affect the distance between each rock. You can simply rename it to rocks by double-clicking and change the modifier name to rock as well. Go to the modifier and select geometry nodes. Next, select this rock and click on the icon to apply it as the new active geometry modifier. Finally, change the name of the modifier to grass. Change the collection rock to grass. Click this icon to hide grass on viewport display, because I'm going to increase the maximum density value, so my PC will get slow. Check the density minimum is 0, and the maximum to 300. Adjust the minimum scale value to 0.600 and the maximum to 0.900. Next, include a geometry node once more. Select and click on this specific icon. You can rename this node as plants. Change the collection to plants. In density factor, click this icon, and then select the landscape. The minimum density value is 0, while the maximum density value is 2. The minimum scale value is 0.5, and the maximum scale value is 1. Finally, we will want a tree. Bring a new geometry modifier, click on this icon, and rename it as tree. Remove this collection node, then bring object node, or you have the option to click on the tree and drag it to bring it here. If you use single object, then use object info not. If you have a collection info node, ensure to use the collection node. Next, connect the object info geometry to the instance and make sure to disable the pick instance as we are only using a single object. Adjust the minimum tree density threshold to 6.73 and set the maximum density to 0.090. Adjust the minimum value of the scale to 1. Set the maximum value of the scale to 1.200. You can now modify the seed value to determine the optimal choice. And then in density factor, click this icon and select landscape. We have to bring the tree trunk. Choose our landscape in edit mode and select this vertex. Then press Shift S cursor to selected. Now that the cursor is here, we will bring the tree trunk to this spot. Next, in the scene collection, select the tree trunk, and press Shift S selection to cursor. As a result, We now have the tree trunk in place. We can now scale it and rotate it as needed. The next step is to adjust the render settings. In the render settings, adjust the samples to 128. If you require higher definition quality, consider increasing the values to 300 or even 500. Next, within the light path settings, you can modify the glossy transmission and other values based on the amount of glossy transmission present in your scene. Click and drag adjust these values to 3. Disable the 2 options afterwards. Lastly, under performance settings, enable the final persistence. Click this wood. Go to shader editor. I think this wood is so bright. So bring RGB curve. Then click, you can see a dot. Then just drag it like this to make it little bit darker. After this you can play with the geometry nodes here. You can change the values. And change the seed values. Take your own time to set it up. Then bring a cube. Scale it big. In shader editor. Click new. Rename it fog. Then delete this node. Click the volume and drag bring principled volume. Reduce the density 0.004. Always remember one thing. If you are creating environment, then don't forget to add fog, it gives realistic. Afterwards, you can choose to click on render, render image, or press F12. Now we have finally created this amazing environment. I hope you also done this. If you are interested in learning more about Gscatter, simply click on the link provided in the description. To understand how to use Gscatter in Blender 4.2, click on the link in the description for further information. If you are a newcomer to my channel, remember to hit the subscribe button.